Now a warm welcome to Khalid Mahmood, Labour MP. Morning, Khalid.
Morning, Kevin.
You would accept and agree with me, I suspect, that this has been almost an unprecedentedly awful week for the government in terms of the migrant crisis. As I just said, there's the Bibi Stockholm migrant barge fiasco down in Portland in Dorset. There are the statistics that we've now just stopped the 100,000 mark. More than six figures have come over from France to Britain in the last 5 years or so, since 2018. But we must remember that of that, 50,000 or so came last year, and it's likely to be a similar figure this year, so it's going up and up and up. And 750 came across yesterday, an absolute record for this year. I mean, you know, Rishi and the gang clearly cannot stop the boats, cannot solve this crisis. What would Labour do to A, stop the boats, B, solve the crisis?
Well, first of all, you've got to stop the boats, and you do that because, first of all, you know, there are a number of people that drown as well that don't actually make it. We sometimes don't hear about them as well. We don't know whether they've drowned or not. So it's not a safe way of doing things, and we should stop that. Rishi Sunak has just tried to signed a few months ago an agreement with France, spending over £400 million. That is not working.
Yeah.
Rishi Sunak has tried to do the Rwanda deal. That hasn't worked. Now with this barge that we've got, that hasn't worked. What the Labour Party has said, first of all, that it will do is we'll have actual safe routes for refugees and not for illegal immigrants to be able to come through. So you assess them outside of the country. Once you've done that, they can come through on a recognised visa if they qualify.
Can I just stop you
and
there? Can I just stop you? I take that point. It's the central raft of Labour's policy on this is to establish a processing centre for asylum seekers in northern France. You know, on the face of it, that's a sensible idea. But in the real world, what is to stop migrants just going, oh, look, there's the processing centre, and waving at it on their way to the beach when they get onto a dinghy again? What will make them go to this processing centre? I suggest, thousands of them will just ignore it.
Well, no, but if you have the deal that you want to sign with the French to make sure the almost $500 million we just paid them, that they make sure that they actually board.
Yeah, but you can't. But you can't make people go somewhere. These are free people.
You can stop them. You can stop them coming across the water if you have sufficient people to control that. What we have done
how do you stop them coming across the water?
Well, I mean, if you let me, Kev, I'll give you the answer.
All right.
what we've said is, and what the Labour Party is saying, first of all, so Keir Starmer has said that we will cross the NCA allocation of people that are there to make sure that that doesn't happen. We need to have our people, border control people and the NCA people on the beaches in France in conjunction with the French. So, like you say, make sure those people go to the centres rather than.
Well, how do you make sure?
At the moment.
But Khalid, how do you make sure they go to the centre? And by the way, deep respect to you, but I always kind of glaze over when somebody says, "Well, what the Tories are doing wrong is this, and what we'll do to solve the crisis is we'll get round the table and we'll talk to the French." Do you think that Rishi and the gang haven't been talking to the French? Talking to the French, Khalid, will get you absolutely nowhere.
No, you've got to, on French soil, you've got to be able to have an agreement where you can get some of our border force or the NCA people. We've got to have far better surveillance, which we used to have until Mrs. May cut 50% of the border force and the surveillance that used to be on the beaches there to be able to stop people coming through.
Sorry to labour the point, but once again, I come back to it. How do you make people go to this northern French processing centre? Many of them won't want to. You can't make them. They're free people. They can go to the beach if they want. You can't make them go to this processing centre.
Kevin, if you have a sufficient presence on the beaches, you make sure you take the boats off these people as they come to the beaches. You have proper
and then you
surveillance.
march them to the processing centre. Isn't that sort of taking them?
If you take the boats away from them, it doesn't matter. They're not going to swim across.
Yeah,
so basically, what you're going to do is make sure that those boats aren't available, those rubber dinghies aren't available to them, and make sure that they're processed properly.
Yeah.
That's what the way it's going to be. What you've got at the moment, now you've just said the figures of 100,000, and the government over the last 5 years have built a huge amount of people up, which they haven't processed. So therefore, those people are in those hotels. This BB Stockholm boat barge isn't going to make a difference where you're supposed to.
I agree with that, totally. It's just sheer tokenism. 500 people can get on board that, and then we learned 750 came across yesterday. We're going to need a lot of barges, aren't we?
It is, but so what you've got to do is at source have safe routes where you can assess these people to come across, but have a better deal with the French so we can actually scan the beaches and have people physically on the beaches to be able to stop them coming across. But that's what the problem is at the moment, because people are being put into the sea by these smugglers, people smugglers, and who are making money out of this, where people's lives are being cost. In terms of just human safety, what we've got to do is our physical presence on the beaches.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I think it's a good point. But am I gleaning from what you're saying that Labour would not give France any more money? Because a lot of people are saying that when Rishi Sunak gave Monsieur Macron £500 million, we got in return the square root of damn all, because they've been pouring across ever since. But we did hear earlier in the week, I think it was Stephen Kinnock, that Shadow Minister, Shadow Labour Secretary of State, said, well, actually, in the short term, we'd have to continue Tory policies of putting them in barges or even hotels and, of course, disused air bases, but for a very short time, and then we would process the applications faster. So, in effect, what he said was, we'll carry on with the same Tory policies, but we'll do them better. People aren't going to buy that.
No, you're right. What Kinnock said is clearly this, is that in the very immediate term, when we start, we have to carry on with what they've done. But what we want to do is put our policies in a better form, working with the French, working with these assessment centres abroad. So only people come through are the ones that are real asylum seekers, and that's it. All the other economic migrants and all those other people who are smuggled through, losing their life in most instances when some of the people try to come across, that has to be stopped. And we should do that by having a better agreement with the French and having people physically on the French beaches, having surveillance physically on the French beaches and taking those boats away from people. That's what you need to do.
Again, I do come back to this. It's the French commitment to this is the problem. They kind of want rid of these migrants. Macron, if he announced, I'm going to stop them leaving our beaches, I'm going to put thousands of cops on the northern shore, that's a vote loser for him, so there's a problem there. But can I finally ask you, Khalid, was Lee Francis, not Lee Francis, not Keith Lemon, this is was Lee Anderson, the Deputy Tory Party chairman, right to say that if these migrants don't get on the barge, they should F off back to France?
Well, first of all, you can't do that because the French won't allow you to do that. And I think it was just...
Yeah, you mean those lovely cooperative French that you were talking about, that we've got to get round the table. Why don't they allow that? Because they want rid of them.
Saying was we have a deal that works. We put our own people on the beaches, we have our own surveillance on the beaches, and we deal with it properly. And what Lee was doing was just trying to make a political point-scoring thing. And all this stuff, nonsense about talking... with sort of expletives in your language is not parliamentary language. It doesn't do us any good. But what we need to do is deliver on that. And that's what the Labour Party will do actively, is to look to address how we can stop the people coming over originally. And that's the deal that you got to have. You've got to have a deal on the French beaches where you stop these people entering water and some of them losing their lives as well.
It's not parliamentary language, fair enough. Was a Labour Party member, not quite a Labour MP anymore, but still a member and a stalwart of the Labour movement, Diane Abbott, right to say that the 41 migrants who tragically drowned off the coast of Italy the other day had indeed effed off. They'd effed off to the bottom of the ocean. Was she right to say that?
Absolutely not, Kevin. I think that's, again, is unparliamentary language. There's no need for it. And we need to pay respect to those people that have died. And that doesn't do that. So I'm not for that either.
So should Keir Starmer kick her out of the Labour Party?
Well, I think there are measures at the moment under disciplinary measures that Diane is facing them, and this will probably be added to that. So we'll have to wait for the NEC to decide that, and that's what the NEC does. So they'll be looking at that and making sure that these sort of issues are addressed.
Great to talk to you, Khalid. Thank you so much for your time. That was Khalid Mahmood, Labour MP.